After about 5 minutes, he looks at me and goes, "You're not attempting some sort of cannonball record, are you?" I said, "In a Jetta?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess you're right." So after our cannonball exploits of 2020 and the S8 Plus twice and the M5 competition once, members of our team were invited to join the musket ball. And there's been multiple people on this channel that have spoken about the musket ball, and the whole premise of this was how fast can you get a slow car from coast to coast? So I believe it was early November 2021. A bunch of us idiots all gathered at the Goodwives Shopping Center in Connecticut and drove to the Portofino Hotel. We all had a shotgun start where we all ran to our cars, just like they did in Le Mans back in the day. And we all drove to the Portofino. My team and I decided that we were going to take a Volkswagen Jetta diesel wagon. And unlike some others that had Volkswagen Jetta diesels on that trip, we did not modify ours illegally. We strapped about 80 gallons of diesel fuel in the hatch of that car, and we went westward. Obviously, it wasn't as intense as the other cannonball record attempts that we had tried, but we moved at a pretty good clip. That car only would do, I don't know, 110, 112. Would only go so fast, especially with three guys in it and a bunch of fuel. We switched back and forth. I don't even remember who started and who finished, but we switched back and forth throughout the entire 34-hour journey. There was one run in with the police in the middle of the night. I was driving at a high rate of speed, but not as high as some would think I was driving, and I got pulled over. So I pull over. The officer comes up to my vehicle, license and registration. Can you please step out of the car? At that moment, I'm like, oh, this is not good. But apparently, in the state of Nebraska, they ask you to get out of the car. It's something that they do to protect themselves, apparently. So he asked me to get in the front seat of his car. I'm like, okay, well, the front seat's better than the back seat, so that's not so bad. I don't have any bracelets on my hands, so we're good there. So he sits down and says, I clocked you at 115 and a 70. And I said, 115 and a 70? In that? I was like, I didn't even think that the car goes that fast. Like, well, that's what I clocked you at. He goes, but not as bad as the guy before in the M8 competition that I got at 142 and a 70 that didn't have a driver's license and the car wasn't registered or insured. I said, oh. He goes, so I just got done bringing him to jail and now I have you. So at this point, the salesperson in me is thinking, okay, how do I sweet talk my way out of this one? So we're going back, we're having a conversation, and after about 5 minutes, he looks at me and goes, "You're not attempting some sort of cannonball record, are you?" I said, "In a Jetta?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess you're right." So we're sitting there, and he tells me, "I'm going to write you a ticket." I'm like, "Well, can you give me a break?" He goes, "I got you at 115." So he writes it at 114. Because apparently, if it was anything higher than 115 or 115 and above, it would be a summons to come to court back in Nebraska. So he thought he was doing me a favor by that. My concern was that the state of Massachusetts, being a reciprocating state, that would be considered reckless driving in Massachusetts. But I took my ticket and hopped back in the car and continued westward towards the Portofino. Unfortunately, we didn't set any records that day. We did, like I said, about 34 hours coast to coast in a Jetta. Got tied up in the Rockies, go figure, behind a milk truck that crashed, and we came to a complete stop for 3 hours. So overall, pretty slow trip in a very slow car. Fast forward, a couple months go by, and I decide I'm going to contest the ticket. I reach out to the ticket clinic. I reach out to all of these different places, and no one has an attorney in this area to try to help fight this ticket for me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to actually fly to the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, and fight this ticket. So I finally find a small town attorney who usually deals with DUIs and reckless driving and things like that. And he's like, yeah, man, I don't know how I'm going to help you, but I'll do the best that I can. So we're getting closer and closer to the date, and he's trying to work with the prosecutor to get me a better deal or reduce the fine or something. And finally, I said, you know what, I'm coming out. I'm just going to hop on a plane, and I'm going to come out, and I'm going to fight this thing. And he's like, really? I said, yeah. He said, okay. The whole reason why I was so adamant about this, other than the fact that I knew I wasn't driving that fast, was, a reckless driving in Massachusetts is a number of points on your license. And I think because of the speed, I actually would have lost my license for up to 60 days. And losing my license means I lose my job. being in the car business, you got to have a license to be in the car business, and that would have major repercussions in in my life, so on and so forth. So I knew that no matter what, I needed to get that reduced, and I didn't care if they changed it to like a $500 or even $1,000 fine. That didn't matter to me. It was the points that eventually would have come back to Massachusetts. The closest airport for me to fly into was Denver. So I flew into Denver, went to a Colorado Rockies game, and the next morning got up and drove my rental car to the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, to fight this ticket. But the interesting thing was when I left Boston and got on the plane, I strategically took a picture of me in the plane and a video in the plane of actually taking off. I've been in the air for about 1 hour, and all of a sudden the prosecutor wants to have a conversation about reducing the ticket so that we didn't have to go to court. Now, mind you, I'm already moving. I'm airborne. I'm flying to Colorado because I'm going to go to Nebraska. Well, my whole thing was calling their bluff because I think they were trying to call mine. I don't think they thought I was actually going to spend the money to fly out and fight this ticket because I didn't feel that that was the speed that I was doing. I'm halfway through my flight and I get a text message that says, hey, they're willing to reduce it to 100 in a 70. I said, absolutely not. And he says, I think it's a good deal. You should take it. I said, nope, not taking that deal. He comes back. He goes, okay, they're at 90. I said, I'm not taking 90. And so now we're in a negotiation. Okay. And he said, okay, well, they're not going to accept anything less. I said, okay, that's fine. So I land and I call him and he goes, hey, they're willing to reduce it to 85 and a 70. And I said, okay, I'll take that. Should I get on the next flight back to Boston? It leaves in an hour. And he said, oh no, you still have to show up. I said, oh, okay. So we agreed on the 85 and a 70, but I still had to show up. So got in my rental car, which was actually a very nice Audi A5, and I'm doing everything I can not to speed from Denver to the middle of nowhere in Nebraska, because all I want to do is get there, get the hell out of there, and come back. And I walk in, I met the attorney. I just walked in the lobby of the courthouse. I gave them my credit card. They charged me about $120. And I got a receipt and I left. And I Venmo'd him his $800 payment for getting me out of the ticket and drove back to Colorado and flew home. So look, I know Ed, you always try to say fight your tickets with whether it be Ticket Clinic or these other providers that are out there. And sometimes you just got to get on a plane and do it yourself.
I start most of my days browsing Auto Tempest for my next bad decision of a car, but did you know that supporting Auto Tempest can also help support all the great content that they support in the automotive YouTube world? I know that you've probably enjoyed a lot of videos that they supported and a lot of channels that they've been sponsoring for years, perhaps without even knowing it. So check them out now at the link in the description below. It is the most powerful way to shop for your next car because you'll see all the listings showing up in one search, and you can search by any criteria that you want, but it also helps make automotive YouTube a much better place. So check them out now, autotempest.com, all the cars, one search.